If you found $100 on the street, would you pick it up or keep walking? Of course you take the money. So why do you keep picking winners and not betting on them? That's why I go to MyBookie. It's fast, it's easy, and they pay you when you win. Let's face it, guys, where you're betting is just as important as who you're betting on. So do the smart thing this football season. If you're going to bet with MyBookie. Did you know you could bet on games after kickoff? If by the second half it looks like you're going to lose your bet, you can always just take the other side at MyBookie. Join now and MyBookie will double your first deposit. Use promo code Detroit100 to activate the offer. That's promo code DETROIT100. Visit mybookie.ag today. You play, you win, you get paid.
Fellas, I want to tell you about a product that can improve your performance in the bedroom. And what better way to improve the quality of your life than to please the woman of your dreams? Blue Chew brings you the first chewable with the same FDA-approved active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, so you know they work. Blue Chew is the fast and easy solution for any man looking to enhance their performance and step up their game. You don't have to be one of those guys that finishes quickly, or you don't have to be one of those guys that, at the end of the day, regrets not having a great sex life. Blue Chew is prescribed online and shipped straight to your door in a discreet package, so no in-person doctor's visit, no waiting in the pharmacy, and best of all, no more awkwardness. They're made in the USA, and since Blue Chew prepares and ships direct, they're cheaper than a pharmacy. Right now, we've got a special deal for our listeners. Visit BlueChew.com and get your first shipment free when you use our special promo code DETROIT. All you got to do is pay the $5 shipping and handling fee. Again, that's BlueChew.com, promo code Detroit to try it free. Blue Chew is the better, cheaper, faster choice, and we thank them for sponsoring the podcast.
Well, it's already gut check and soul-searching time for the Michigan Wolverines. We'll discuss next on this week's edition of Michigan Podcast.
But there's going to be one team that's going to play solely as a team. No man is more important than the team. No coach is more important than the team. The team, the team, the team.
Looks deep for Anthony Clark. Waits for it. Yep, caught.
This is no time for that. In the pocket and a sack. Tim Jamison. Brady gets terrific.
Throws it and a touchdown. Knight again. Schultz just before Brazil got him. And a leaping interception by Woodson.
Harbaugh back to throw over the middle. Caught by Collier at the 5 on his feet. Touchdown, Michigan. On its way. It's good.
He's 5'7", 179 pounds, a junior at Michigan. But Jamie Morris packs a wallop, and he delivers for Bo Schembechler.
And here's your first play. Pressure coming. Sack. It is Glenn Steele, number 81, who fought his way through the traffic.
Option. And Robinson calls his own number, and he's going to score. Oh, an easy touchdown for Robinson and Michigan.
Win it. We're going to win the championship again because we're going to play as a team. And when we play as a team and the old season is over, you and I know it's going to be Michigan again. Michigan.
Go Blue, I'm Steve Deace. Welcome to this week's edition of Michigan Podcast. Michael Spath and Brandon Brown, who join me at Wolverine Digest and are also each day on WTKA in Ann Arbor, they'll be joining us later in the program for their thoughts. We'll get some Twitter poll results and this week's question of the week in there as well. But we begin with, this is not what we were promised. It's certainly not what we anticipated. You know, last week, I guess you chalk it up to opening game, jitters, it's a new offense, what have you. But what happened against Army, and I'm not going to be one of those media folks that predicted an upset or warned this was an upset alert for 8 months, and then when Michigan survives the upset, then blames Michigan, and Kirk Herbstreit says on Saturday night, I can't believe Michigan's celebrating like that against Army. You're right. They should have immediately just solemnly put their helmets down. Bleak House walked off the field with a Spock-like countenance. I mean, come on, man. They're 18, 19, 20-year-old players, Kirk. That's not analysis, that's trolling. Come on. I mean, they just survived a near-death experience. They're young people, let them have some emotion, not to mention some of that was to sing the alma mater with Army in a really just patriotic class move. So it's not about that Army played Michigan tough. It's that they really didn't. That's really the issue for me. Army had 243 total yards. 243. If you look at their total yards, rushing yards, yards per carry, it's the worst offensive performance that Army has had since 2015, almost 5 years. If I would have told you before the game began that Army would only have 243 total yards, you're probably predicting Michigan to win 42-10. Instead, because of an offense that right now is abysmal, it became a double overtime nail biter. And that possession in double overtime where Nico Collins is 6'5", and Shea Patterson threw the ball in the third row of the stands when he had 2 yards on the DB for a touchdown. And then Tariq Black drops the next pass. And then on the third down play, I think Shea Patterson threw about 5 yards wide. Yikes. So the pre-snap penalties, the turnovers. Michigan right now is 106th in the nation, I want to say, and turnovers lost through 2 weeks. So perfect. No, Shea Patterson was not instructed not to give the ball off on those zone reads. In fact, Josh Gaddis blew that narrative up at his Monday press avail. So this offense, if they don't get it figured out, and at some point they will, right? The coaches are too good, the talent's too good. At some point they will, but maybe they could do it before they lose 2 or 3 games and blow the season. Because coming up next, and we'll get into this more next week, but coming up next is a Wisconsin team that in the AP poll era has had the second most dominant opening 2 games by a Big Ten team since 1936. And this is a revenge game for them. They've got a bye week too, although they probably would like to keep playing with the way they're playing right now. There's a lot of questions that Michigan needs to answer, all of them on the offense. The defense, for as young as they are, if I see one more trolling take, I thought Don Brown practiced for 8 months against Army. He did, and that's why they only had 243 yards and their worst defensive performance in 4 years. So shut your hole and do your research, Twitter troll. That being said, though, that offense, if they don't get it figured out, if they don't get the quarterback figured out, if they don't get the scheme figured out, it threatens to wreck what we all thought was going to finally be the season we've been waiting for 15 years. So there's a lot, and yes, did I just say 15 years and now I want to cut myself, reminding myself it has been that long. With that said, though, there's lots of questions that we could ask. I'm going to narrow it down to 3. Here are the 3 questions that I think post-Army in this bye week, the Michigan coaching staff has to answer these 3 questions, all right? Here's the first one I think they have to answer. What are we actually trying to accomplish on offense? What are we doing here? 12 straight runs in the fourth quarter, 27 out of 14 plays we're running plays. Where is the speed and space? Very little tempo, very little attacking downfield. Why do we have a quarterback just not even making the defense be honest on the edges? Why are we so desperate on offense with all of the recruits we have, all of the depth we have, all of the weapons we have? Why are we so desperate that we need a freshman running back who was overcoming a knee scope in the spring and didn't participate in spring drills despite being an early enrollee whatsoever? Why do we need him to carry the ball 33 times and play about 65 plays? Why? What was the point of putting Dylan McCaffrey out there for 1 snap in the second half and then yanking him after 1 play? What are we doing here? I mean, what's the vision? What are we trying to accomplish? And yes, obviously to score more points than the opponent. But what is it we're trying to accomplish in order for that to occur? Right? I think that's the first question Michigan has to answer, which is the vision question. And that leads to question number 2. Whose offense is this? Now, Josh Gaddis and Don Brown spoke to the media on Monday, and props to Michigan for that. A lot of schools won't let their coordinators talk during the season. particularly the offensive coordinator, because of the scrutiny that goes along with it. Josh Gaddis did. He was very impressive. Clearly, you can see there's some future head coaching material there if it turns out he knows how to coach offense. We don't know that yet. We're about to find out. But he owned up to everything and took responsibility for it, but also said the vast majority of this is a lack of execution, or what we call on the show LOEs. He also said something interesting. His entire offense is predicated on read options, both in the passing and running games. That everything is intended to provide an option for the quarterback to choose the one that puts the offense in the best situation given what the defense is doing. Well, there's only one way to interpret that. Shea Patterson's not doing a good job running the offense then. If you've been following myself and Michael Spath and Brandon Brown this week on Twitter, we have tweeted out clips where you see an RPO where they just hand the ball off to Zach Charbonnet. That's a run-pass option. You can clearly tell it is by the way Michigan is blocking. And they just hand the ball off to Zach Charbonnet. He tries to run downhill against a 47-man front, so he's got no chance. Tariq Black, by the way, has a 20-yard cushion. If you just throw him the ball, there's no safety on the field. He makes one cut and runs. He's probably still running all the way back to West Point by this point. I mean, we've all seen the clips, too, of nobody keeping the defensive end honest. And if the quarterback kept it a few more times, it would look like that game against Wisconsin last year. So there's a fear that what we're seeing is the worst of both worlds. That we're seeing Jim Harbaugh's offense in Josh Gaddis's formations and system, which is like a body with two left arms. That's the worst of both worlds. Now, Gaddis was out there on Monday saying that's not true, and he's in total control of the offense. Okay, well, then they need to do something to improve the execution of this offense. Because right now, if you were to ask me about Michigan's offensive execution, my answer would be, I'm in favor of it. Let's get to question 3. Where are your senior leaders? Look at this last game. Zach Charbonnet, freshman, player of the game. Daxton Hill, who's there in that photo, converted Michigan's biggest pass play of the game on a fake punt, freshman. Aiden Hutchinson carried that defense on Saturday, sophomore. Hey, that's great for the future, but here in the maize and blue parts, we've been talking about next year for 15 years. We'd kind of like to talk about this year. You got Ben Bredesen, not 1 but 2 pre-snap penalties in the first half. Your center's getting pre-snap penalties. Khaleke Hudson directly gave Army 2 touchdowns with defensive penalties. Clutching and grabbing, panicking like a freshman in coverage. So he grabs a receiver, penalty. That preserved the drive. That was 3rd down. Later on, he lines up offsides on a 3rd and 5 when Michigan got the stop. And he wasn't just offsides, man. I mean, like he was almost on the Army side of the line of scrimmage. That led to another touchdown. So you can't have that. You can't have that. The way Shea Patterson, another senior, has played, Lavert Hill got called for a defensive holding against Army when he didn't have to do that either. The one senior leader on this team who's been lights out 2 games in a row, Josh Metellus has been terrific. But your other senior leaders here, I mean, I love Khaleke Hudson to death, man, and congratulations on being voted captain, but can you do something other than get a stupid penalty in 2 years? Really? I mean, what has he done since the Minnesota game? He's been known for targeting calls and what happened against Army. Yeah, he's got a lot of tackles, but they're all downfield. So this isn't Harbaugh's first year. This isn't a roster influx. This is 4 full years of Jim Harbaugh recruiting. And if it wasn't for a true sophomore only starting for the 2nd time, a true freshman only starting for the 2nd time, and another true freshman who hasn't even started a game yet, if it wasn't for the 3 of them, if it wasn't for Aiden Hutchinson, Daxton Hill, and Zach Charbonnet, Michigan loses that game as a 3.5 touchdown favorite on Saturday. So that's not how this works when you're in year 5. It should be the guys that have been here the longest, that have been through the physical conditioning, the developing, have the experience. They should be the ones stepping up in crunch time. And if Michigan doesn't want to get squashed the rest of the season, they're going to finally have to do that. Well, I've got good news for you, fellas. The moment will arrive here in about a week and a half when you're going to be called upon and needed. Michigan hasn't won a game in Madison since 2001. And they sure as hell aren't winning this next one when your senior leaders are playing like that. Michael Spath and Brandon Brown from Wolverine Digest and WTKA in Ann Arbor will join us next. You can tell the season is nigh because we're upping the ante where the content is concerned on our Patreon page as well. I've already got some week 0 and week 1 early lines I played earlier this year with an opportunity for you, if you're one of our subscribers, to look at those lines and see how they've adjusted. We've opened up a brand new sports book here in Des Moines, Iowa, where I live, and you've gotten a chance to see the first game that or set of games that I've played at our sports book there as well. We'll be giving you exclusive post-game podcasts, instant reactions to every Michigan game on our Patreon page as well, if you're a part of our $5 a month exclusive club. And that's where you get access to all of our content. And for $25 a month, you get all of that content as well, but you'll get your name or your business in the credits and a shout out on the show. If you want to support us here at Michigan Podcast, go to patreon.com/Michigan Podcast. That's patreon.com/Michigan Podcast. All right, back here on Michigan Podcast, I'm Steve Deace, Brandon Brown, Michael Spath joining me now from Wolverine Digest.com as well as WTKA in Ann Arbor. Gentlemen, it's good to have you back with us here on Michigan Podcast. I want to begin with sort of, let's start with a temperature in the room question, okay? On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being 1997 12-0 national championship nirvana, and 10 being, what the hell is a Stephen Threet running a read option? All right. On a scale of those two tent poles, 1 to 10, what is your concern level for Michigan's season, given what we've seen the first 2 weeks, particularly on offense, and given the expectations and hopes we had for this team? All right. So, Brandon, let me start with you. Where are you at 1 to 10 there?
I'll go about a 6, because I think, Michigan's 2-0. Things could be worse. They could have lost to Army. I think Middle Tennessee showed that they're not a bad team. I mean, obviously Michigan ended up winning that game by 20, so it was never really that close. But all things considered, Michigan is 2-0. But I got a little heated on the radio today with Mike, especially the last possession for Michigan in regulation just makes me scratch my head and go, what are they doing with this type of approach? I thought Josh Gaddis was all about explosive plays and let's be aggressive and go score. In fact, I referenced his pinned tweet on his Twitter page, and it talks about exactly that. Speed and space, be aggressive and score, be dynamic, like all these hot buzzwords, and it was like the exact opposite of that in regulation. They tried to eat clock. They wanted to get it down as close as they could. They didn't act like they wanted to score a touchdown at all. And that's a problem. That's a problem for me. 2-0 is great. I'm happy that they won both games, but Josh Gaddis was hired to come in and do something completely different, and it has not been different. I mean, so I don't think it's time to, I don't think it's time to panic. I don't think it's time to start thinking about, well, better luck next year, or let's think about who's going to be running things in a year from now. I don't think it's there yet, but I was really discouraged by how that game played out down the stretch.
Same question to you, Michael. Scale of 1 to 10. 1, Demetrius Brown in the second half against Ohio State in 1988 versus 10, Demetrius Brown the whole game against Michigan State in 1987. All right, how concerned are you right now for this team's goals and hopes heading into the season?
I'm going to be kind of boring, and I think that, those who have been avid listeners of the Michigan podcast for the last couple of years are going to be surprised by this. But I'm probably a 5. I'm not overly concerned. I'm not under concerned. It's kind of smack dab in the middle there. I don't know yet. Michigan really could have, you could say, should have lost that game to Army if not for a boneheaded play call by Army's coaches there, inside the 5-yard line in the third quarter. But it's 2 games into the season. The offense has not clicked. Shea Patterson has looked sub-average in his first 2 games, especially this last one. That's maybe my biggest concern. I've spent a lot of time kind of looking at the offensive game plan. I agree with Brandon. I don't love the approach on their final drive of the game because it wasn't the type of approach that's going to win you big games against Ohio State or go to a Big Ten title or go to a college football playoff. But I do think a lot of Michigan's issues in this game against Army were bad quarterback play, and that is a concern. That is a definite concern because you've got a senior quarterback with 2 full years about starting experience. He's in an offense that's supposed to be tailor-made for him, with all the RPOs, with the read option, with throwing the ball downfield, and we haven't seen any of that. And a lot of speculation that he's got the oblique injury is really impacting him. I don't know how much to make of that, but I know that Shea Patterson has to play tremendously better for Michigan to go on the road and beat Wisconsin. And if he doesn't, where's his leash at? How much wiggle room do the coaches give him? I think you give him maybe a half before you have to make a change to Dylan McCaffrey. And so that's disappointing. We talked about it today on the radio that 2 weeks in the season, the one spot we did not expect to be talking about is quarterback. And here we are talking about quarterback. And that's not a good sign for Michigan. But I think the rest of it, the drops, I think those are going to get cleaned up. The defense has been better than expected. The special teams have been really solid. The offensive line is going to get a boost when John Runyon Jr. comes back. The running backs have been better than expected. The tight ends have been really good. So I think the other pieces are there, but they just need better quarterback play.
All right, gentlemen, let's see if we can get some clarity on what have been some common tropes this week. And you guys let our audience know, if they can maybe separate clarity from some confusion. All right, so the idea that these weren't really read options or zone reads. Al Borges told Sam Webb on WTKA that there's only one of those plays where Shea Patterson should have kept it and run the ball. Now, I have no idea why we're taking offensive coordinator advice from Al Borges, but we'll go with it. Meanwhile, Josh Gaddis at his press avail on Monday, and I wrote about this for Wolverine Digest, he made it plainly clear his entire offense is a read option, both in the passing and running game. Everything, it gives the quarterback options. And seemed to all but just flat out say that Shea Patterson wasn't running his offense properly. So let's get some, and both Harbaugh said he was healthy, and Gaddis said he was banged up, but it shouldn't have hindered him at all. So let's start there on the clarity front. What can you clarify on, was he supposed to keep it on those read options? Was he not? Does he solely have the option of not handing the ball to Zach Charbonnet and throwing the football? I mean, we have shared some clips out there with, Tariq Black running, with nobody within 10 yards of him, and yet we're running into 27-man fronts. So, Michael, let me start here with you this time. What can you clarify for us? What do you know for certain based on whom you've talked to?
I know for certain that in the I believe it was the fourth quarter and in overtime, Michigan ran the ball on 12 consecutive offensive plays. I can clarify for certain that was never the plan to run the ball on 12 consecutive plays, and that I think 11 out of the 12 were run by the running back, by Zach Charbonnet or by Christian Turner. That's just too many carries. I know that Al Borges said that there was only one time where Shea should have kept it. But man, I mean, not to say I know more than Al Borges, but he was a very conservative coach during his time in Michigan, who, in some ways made two really athletic, really talented, really strong dual threat guys into worse versions of themselves, and that being Denard Robinson and Devin Gardner. So I'm not going to sit there and go like, oh yeah, he only should have kept it. I think there's a mesh point, a 50-50 mesh point where he could have kept it on a couple of more, or he could have handed it off. And in every single situation, he handed the ball off because either he felt like he was hurt or he was mentally scared of the moment and didn't want to take the ball. I counted 3 opportunities out of those 12 where I really thought he should have kept it. Again, someone can disagree with me, but where you look and see a lot of green space that he could have picked up 6, 8, 10, 12 yards and given Army's defense something to think about instead of them just always crashing with their linebackers, the B gaps and the corner blitz and the outside linebacker blitz just coming in to stop the running game. And then in terms of the amount of passing attempts, looking at it, and like you said, you showed some film, and we're going to be looking at some film more later. I do think there are times where the RPO was in full effect and he could have thrown the football and chose not to throw the football. I mean, the term that I had a couple former players share with me, including a quarterback other than Devin Gardner, was that he looked shell-shocked. That in the entire second half, and especially that fourth quarter, that Shea Patterson was not seeing the field, was not seeing the defense, and then that happens, and you kind of go into in the fetal position a little bit. As a coordinator, you're stuck unless you make the quarterback change, which I still think they could have done. But yeah, I think a lot of this frustration is on Patterson. And again, That's not a good sign if your senior quarterback 2 games into his final season is struggling that much mentally.
So, Brandon, doubtful that, since we all kind of know who several of Michael's sources are here, doubtful that we're going to have better information than that. So let me pick your brain analytically.
Okay.
If all of that is true, what is the purpose of having one of the few deep quarterback rooms in the United States of America? Just to have, like, I can understand why Devin Gardner, when he shut down, by his own admission, talking to Michael earlier this week, he kind of had a shutdown moment like this. I think he said against Akron. Well, you know, if you ever saw Russell Bellamy for 3 seconds, I can see why they might have made some of those decisions, right? But when you've got the quarterback room they do, to the point that they think Dylan McCaffrey is so special, they got to interrupt the flow of the game to find and contrive ways for him to play. Why are you allowing your entire offense to be handcuffed by your quarterback who's having a deer in the headlights afternoon? Why would you do that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we talked about this topic on the radio today too. I mean, it's, you know, Jim Harbaugh said before the season started that Dylan McCaffrey was going to play in every single game, and we saw a decent amount in the first game against Middle Tennessee. In the second game against Army, Dylan McCaffrey did not touch the field in the first half. In the second half, he came out, I think, on the second offensive play of the game and threw a very strange pass, you know, after being cold and sitting on the bench for, you know, what was probably more than an hour of actual time. And then he came in for 2 or 3 more plays to hand the ball off during one of those long stretches of 8 or 12 straight runs. It was just a bizarre usage of a kid that obviously has some ability running the ball. I assume he hasn't forgotten how to throw the ball. I mean, I don't know if calling him in cold off the bench in the second half and having him throw a weird slant pass is really the way to do it. But he's a capable guy. I don't know. He's obviously not ready in some way, or else we would have seen him, I think. The whole plan from start to finish is just really strange to me. Didn't challenge vertically down the field with superior athletes to anything Army can put on the field. Didn't run Dylan McCaffrey at all, even though that's all he did pretty much in the first game. And he was barely even in, period, even though Jim Harbaugh said that he wants to use him every single week. And so it doesn't add up. Something seems off. You know, if it's Shea with the oblique injury, then why isn't Dylan playing? If Shea really is fine, then why isn't he playing better? Why is he acting shell-shocked? You know, I don't know. One thing that is clear is that whatever the reasoning is for the poor quarterback play or the poor play calling or however you want to slice it, it's bad. I mean, if it's Shea making bad reads over and over and over, that's not good. And if it's Josh Gaddis or whoever's calling the plays, telling him to give it every single time, that didn't work very well, so that's not good. It's just puzzling really from start to finish, and especially in the second half. It really just didn't make a lot of sense across the board.
So when your defense is holding them to 243 total yards, and when you look at the full metric of Army's offensive performance, when you look at their total yards per carry, I believe it is their worst, pardon me, it's their worst offensive performance since 2015, before the program really began to emerge under Jeff Monken. With that being said, if I would have told you guys Army was going to get 243 total yards before the game, we all would have thought Michigan wins like 42-10.
Yeah.
So your defense is holding them to 243 yards. Brandon, can you help me understand why Michigan thought the right strategy was to play right into Army's hands by doing everything they could to make this a one-possession game? And then when they were doing that, when they had a chip shot field goal that would have for the first time put Army behind, they played from ahead the whole game. They faced no pressure at all. You put them behind, and then you kick the ball into the back of the end zone and pin them deep in their own territory, and now the crowd is involved. That was then the time they decide to get all creative. Can you help me understand that, and our audience to understand that, Brandon?
Shortest answer in the history of podcasts: no. I can't. I can't. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. I mean, I don't mind going for it on fourth down. I really don't. I mean, you know, when you lay it out like that, yeah, kicking the field goal probably would have done it. I mean, the way that Michigan's defense was controlling them, for the most part. I mean, Army was getting some yardage, but it was taking them a long time to move the ball down the field, and they're okay with that. But that's not. They don't have the time with 2.5 minutes to go at the end of the game if they're down 3. If Michigan knocks through a field goal, or however it ends up being, or you kick it deep and it's time. I mean, there are a lot of ways it could have played out. I don't know. I don't like I said, from start to finish, offense and defense, just a lot of decisions, a lot of choices made, just don't really seem to add up and don't really seem to go with what we heard coming into the season. Just a strange game that I guess we're lucky Michigan won, but just leaves you scratching your head a lot heading into a bye week and then with Wisconsin down the line.
Michael, you cover sports year-round on your show, not just Michigan football. Can you name me a sport where the clearly more physically talented and gifted team believes the right way to win is to let the team that's demonstrably less talented hang around the entire time so it becomes a one-possession, one-play game? Can you name me in any other sport where that's the game plan?
Shortest answer in podcast history, like Brandon said. No. I mean, I think the hard part was, and this is where fans, I feel their frustration, and where, we do this a lot in sports where we compare one situation to another, and it may not be the same. Why is our 5-star quarterback not performing well? Look at all these 5-star quarterbacks that are awesome. And then you ignore the 5-star quarterbacks that aren't playing well. Or, why can't our true freshman quarterback go out there and do what Trevor Lawrence did? When we ignore the fact that Trevor Lawrence is like once in a quarter century type of talent at that particular position. And so I that happens. At the same time, it's hard not to watch the rest of college football this past weekend or the first 2 weekends and see teams like Ohio State going up against a Cincinnati team. But everybody was saying, hey, you know what? After they beat UCLA, they look pretty good. Maybe they'll give Ohio State a little bit of the run for their money, and the Buckeyes just go out there and just unleash themselves offensively, and they're like, "Screw it, we're not going to make this a tight game. We're not going to play defense to keep it tight and then bury them with our superior talent at the end." They just went all out the whole time. LSU, Texas, down in Austin, and LSU is out there firing the football all around the field, saying, "We've got great athletes. We trust them. We're going to go win this football game right now." I mean, you saw it over and over again, and I just don't understand the stubbornness. I mean, when people accuse Jim Harbaugh of playing 1970s Bo Schembechler type football, this is the stuff that they can point to. And this is Lloyd ball, and this is now what's being coined Harbaugh ball, where it's just play for the defense, play for special teams. And, we saw it last year in that Ohio State game. That was the game plan against Ohio State down in Columbus was keep it close to the vest, don't make mistakes, no turnovers. Let's rely on our defense. Let's keep it close and win this one 24-21. And we saw how that shaked out because Ohio State was like, screw it, we're going all out after you. We're going to attack, and they blew Michigan's doors off. And so, no, I don't get why that is not the mentality. That was supposed to be the mentality. That was all the offseason talk. And at least in 2 games, we haven't seen it. And certainly to play into Army's strengths, especially in that fourth quarter, hey, we're just going to run the clock, and hope that we end up with the ball with 4 seconds to go to try to kick a game-winning field goal. I don't understand that at all.
So this, to me, in light of what Michael just said, and he previewed where we're going to go next, this to me is the $64,000 question here. It is the elephant in the room. So Michael mentioned LSU. If you look at the total team talent ratings that I put together for my preview, Michigan and LSU's rosters were ranked 5th and 6th most talented in college football. The 24/7 total team talent composite has both teams in the top 10. They have deeply embedded cultures of pro-style offenses. LSU going back to Les Miles and Nick Saban, and Les Miles, of course, a Bo Schembechler disciple, and of course, Jim Harbaugh being one as well and coming from the NFL. And so they have commensurate talent. They're both loaded at wide receiver. They both have transfer senior quarterbacks. It's just that Michigan's is the guy that, until Justin Fields showed up, was the highest rated quarterback recruit to come into the Big Ten, I think, in the 24/7 sports composite era. He was the 5-star. So, and LSU is making the exact same offensive transition. In fact, the guy they hired, Coach Brady, was the grad assistant under Josh Gaddis when he was the wide receivers coach at Penn State under Joe Moorhead. This guy was their grad assistant. So he's the grad assistant. And they've made the same switch Michigan has made. They're actually on their 3rd offense in 3 years because they tried to switch to Matt Canada's offense in 2017 and it didn't work. They fired him. They went back to the stodgy pro style last year, and now they're making. So this is actually their third offensive system in 3 years, and the coordinator was the GA under Gaddis. How is it possible? Like, they're not even just a little bit better. Like, we're not on their astral plane right now. I mean, it's not even our center is falling on his ass trying to give out the pre-snap reads. Okay, we've got All-Americans getting pre-snap 2 penalties. The turnovers were 106th in the nation in turnovers. That pass that Shea threw to Nico Collins in the overtime, where he had his man beat by 3 yards, I think it landed in the third damn row of the end zone seats. Mm-hmm. How is it possible, with commiserate talent and a younger coach with less experience, and on their third offense in 3 years, and facing far tougher competition last week than we have faced so far, how is it possible LSU looks so much better than us? Does anybody know the answer to that question, either one of you? I'd like to know that one.
I'll take a stab at it. I really think it comes down to just the way that the mentality you have if you play with aggressiveness. I mean, it's a little bit like the Don Brown. I know that Don Brown got burned by Ohio State a couple of times, and people, a little bit of the shine is off that. But he always says, I'd rather have my guys make mistakes going all out and being aggressive and being man-to-man and in their face than kind of playing with some trepidation. And that works for defense. And we've seen Michigan make a lot of big plays. In fact, in this game, even though they were giving up some chunks of yardage and Army kind of had them against the ropes, Michigan's defense, double overtime, makes the 2 biggest plays of the game because they're still playing with that aggressive attitude. And I think when you look across college football, a lot of different places, I mean, you want to talk Oklahoma, you want to talk Clemson, putting a true freshman quarterback in last year and letting them throw the ball all over the field. Alabama 2 years ago putting Tua Tagovailoa in the national championship game in the second half, and one of his very first passes is about a 50-yard bomb. It's like, hey, look, we're going to play aggressive. We're going to have that mentality. We're just going to go all out. And when you play that way, it gives confidence to your players. It lets them play loose and free and just kind of go for broke. And that's what honestly all these guys are used to. They're coming up through their high school ranks, through their grade school ranks, and they're just used to being the best player on the football field and being able to do whatever they want to be able to do. And then they come to college, and some programs just say, like, whoa, slow down. We're going to try to play this safe and conservative. And that goes in the exact opposite of everything that they've known as a football player in their lives so far. And to answer, I mean, LSU has the mentality and have a quarterback that is willing to take those chances. And I thought that's what we were getting with Josh Gaddis this year, and maybe we still are. Maybe that's still there and just hasn't had the quarterback play. But, I mean, that's what's got to change going forward here. If they're going to beat Wisconsin in 2 weeks, they've got to have an aggressive, we're going to take a shot every single time we're on the football field, as opposed to, if Michigan tries to win that game against Jonathan Taylor in Wisconsin by slowing down Wisconsin and controlling the clock to keep them off the field, and they try to win that game 21-17, what's going to happen is they're going to lose that game 28-10. Mm-hmm. And that's just what we're going to find out here. I don't know the answer to it yet. I think everybody's jumping to conclusions and overreacting. I've been guilty of that in the past. I don't know the answer to that yet, but I think we're going to know the answer to that in whatever that is, 11 days from now.
Well said. Brandon, you get the last word. Go ahead.
No, Michael said a lot of really good things, and I agree with all of it, but he left out 2 major words that I think is the underlying cause of all of it, and it's Jim Harbaugh. I mean, I hate to say that, but it's pretty clear that Ed Orgeron at LSU trusts his offensive coaches. He's got an offensive coordinator and a passing game coordinator that completely turned things around for Joe Burrow and their offense in 2 games. I mean, what we saw out of LSU against Texas would have never shown up last year for LSU, and obviously they went through a complete overhaul. But again, it's not like they've been doing this for 2 or 3 years. Like, this is 2 games in, and their passing game looked like that. To me, it is painfully obvious that Jim Harbaugh would not let go of what the game plan was down the stretch. And if he had nothing to do with the tempo or the plan to run the ball 12 times in a row and eat clock and try to finish the game with a field goal. I mean, it sure didn't look like they were trying to score a touchdown. Maybe they thought they could plod down there and get a score on the ground, but that's not what it looked like. So go down there, get a field goal, win the game by 3, and call it a day. If that really had nothing to do with Jim Harbaugh, then we were all duped by what Josh Gaddis has been talking about and what he said he was going to do. So it's one or the other. It's either Jim Harbaugh won't let it go, and he's still doing the same things that he was doing last year, or Josh Gaddis is not who we thought he was and who he claimed to be coming into the season, because look at what Mike Loxley's doing at Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
It looks a lot like what Alabama was doing last year when Loxley and Gaddis were supposedly hand-to-hand in making the offensive game plan.
Looks like Mike Loxley won that argument.
Not adding up.
Doesn't it look like Mike Loxley won that argument, Brandon, that he was having with Josh Gaddis a month or two ago?
It sure does. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's either Jim Harbaugh refusing to take his hands away, or Josh Gaddis just isn't who he said he was going to be when he got the job. I mean, it's that simple.
Well, gentlemen, I think this is one of the most important games of the Harbaugh tenure. And I will be fascinated to see what we come out with next week. We'll break that down. We'll preview that game. I will say this, though. I agree with Michael's analysis. If we try to win this in traditional way, in that environment, we're not executing efficiently enough. No way we win that environment. If we unleash the hounds and just say, you know what, you guys, athlete to athlete, can't cover us, and we'll take our chances, and maybe we'll have a deflected interception or two, but we might throw 4 touchdown passes at the same time, then I think they can win the game. I just doubt, after what we saw the first 2 weeks, that they're willing to do that, because we were all told that's what they were doing this offseason. In fact, guys, let me throw this at you really quick before you go. One of the things that really mystifies me, and, you know, you guys are closer to it than me, the fall camp hype, and every school does this, and, you know, I don't know why any school would walk in and say to the Michael Spaths and Sam Webbs and Chris Ballases of their market, guys, we're going to suck this year. Nobody's going to do that, okay? That's just not in human nature to go into the season after waiting all this time and all the prep work and expect doom, okay? But this spring, after our spring game, there were coaching clinic videos and accounts on YouTube that don't give a rip what Michigan's record is. They're just looking to share how-to clips and share them with coaches around the country that were so impressed with what they saw Michigan show in the spring in terms of their quick evolution to this RPO offense. They were sharing these clips with high school and college coaches around the country. All right? Where the hell is that in the 2 weeks we've been here? How we have all been given, this isn't our first day working in sports media. We've all had sunshine pumped up our ass, all right? But when I watch coaching clinics sharing our videos from the spring with other coaches around the country, and then I compare that to what we are doing, what the hell is that? Do you guys have an answer to that?
No, it's exactly what I've been saying. I mean, it's either, like I said, Jim Harbaugh is just he got freaked out as the season approached and said, I can't let it go. We're going to do stuff like I've always done it. Or Josh Gaddis just is not the guy that I thought he was. I mean, we've all heard from a lot of people who have been around Josh Gaddis that he's progressive, he's intelligent, he's aggressive as a play caller, as a schemer, that he wants to score points, that he wants to go fast, and it hasn't been there. So, I mean, look, the facts are the facts. Put on the tape and watch it. And if Josh Gaddis claims to be all of those things I just named, then it's not bearing out on film. So, I mean, yeah, I would. That's my question too. That's my biggest question. Again, I'm not hitting the panic button. Michigan's 2-0. They beat 2 far inferior teams in less than impressive fashion, and they got a big one coming. So, something needs to change.
Well said, both of you. Thanks for your candor for being a part of the program this week on Michigan Podcast. And next week, we will break down the Big Ten opener against the Badgers in Madison. Thank you, guys. Take care.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, as you just heard, we're very excited about the addition of Brandon Brown to our website at WolverineDigest.com. He has been a fixture covering Michigan football, particularly recruiting, but team-based stuff as well for the last several years for the Wolverine. And now he will be doing the same for us here at WolverineDigest.com, beginning with focusing on covering both Michigan football and men's basketball. Then he'll be branching out from there. And we've already upped the content ante quite a bit, but it's about to get a massive turbo injection here from the likes of Brandon Brown. So we're very excited that Brandon is joining us here at Wolverine Digest. That's a great place for you to keep up with everything we do all week long in between episodes here at Michigan Podcast. Just go to WolverineDigest.com. This week's Twitter poll results, we asked you who should start at quarterback for Michigan against Wisconsin. And oh boy, whoa, Nelly, as Keith Jackson used to say, that's pretty close to a split decision, 51-49. Shea Patterson getting the edge over Dylan McCaffrey. So there you go. This week's question of the week, Jamal Green asks, how did this look so good, this offense in practice, allegedly, and the spring game? And then this nonsense is what reality shows. Scary part is, if this is how you are at home, how's it going to look better on the road? Well, a couple of things there is in the spring game, there's a lot of coaching film out there with analytics folks who share coaching clinic videos. There's a lot of those videos that were very favorable to what Michigan showed in the spring game. And people were demonstrating, hey, here's how it looks, a really good transition to this kind of offense. So it wasn't just your typical fall camp hype. You know, we kind of mainline that around these parts, tap the veins, hit our favorite website, right? Just start doing maize and blue lines of hype, okay? But you know, folks who could give a rip what Michigan's record is, they're just in it to, you know, looking to teach concepts. We're very impressed with what they saw in the spring. And they were sharing the clips and the videos all offseason. So this wasn't just the hype machine. There is some disconnect there. And, you know, if you listen to the roundtable we had this week with Spath and Brown, you heard us address that topic. I also wonder, maybe it might be better off if Michigan went on the road right now. Because our fan base, man, and I don't blame any of you, 15 damn years since we have done anything significant around here. We've had some nice seasons, but it's been 15 years since we've had a significant one. That's the longest drought in the history of this illustrious program. And I don't blame any of you for being at your wit's end, particularly with the comedy of errors that was the offense on Saturday. So we've got a fan base right now that's on tilt, to use a poker term. And you could sense that on Saturday. Even I could sense it watching the game from Iowa, 500 miles away, where I live. You could sense that the stadium was like, are you freaking kidding me? Josh Gaddis talked on Monday that his players are very aware of the expectations for this team, and he thinks they're playing tight, and they need to loosen up and relax. Right now, our fan base is like Charlie Brown. Lucy has pulled the football away so many times that at the first sign of adversity, at the first sign of, here we go again, we're like, here we go again, right? So it might be good to get out of Ann Arbor for a while and go play this game in enemy territory, you against the world, nothing to lose. I think Wisconsin will be favored in the game. Won't be by much, but I think they'll be favored. And you just go up there and you're like, you know what, man, everybody's against us. We got to hit a reboot here, show everybody what we're about. Maybe that's for the best, because right now, locally, the fan base is, the peasants are about to storm the Bastille here. And I think you could sense that in both Don Brown's fiery rhetoric at his presser on Monday, although it wasn't needed. He proved himself on Monday against Army's offense. But especially in the forthright and transparent way, Josh Gaddis addressed what we've seen in terms of the deficiencies on offense, and him addressing that the team is aware of the pressure on this team. So maybe it's better, Jamal, for them to get out of Ann Arbor for a while, go on the road, go into hostile territory, them against the world, and see if they can come together as a team. Because right now it doesn't seem like they have done that yet so far. Well, thank you very much to all of you for watching on YouTube and listening this week on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. Whatever is the platform of your choice, whether it is YouTube or a podcast, like, subscribe, rate 5 stars, however it's appropriate on that platform. Please, the more of you do that, the more likely we are to find more Michigan fans like you. Share this with the Michigan fans. You know, word of mouth is the way that we try to spread the word about what we're doing here each and every week at Michigan Podast. Don't forget to check us out online at WolverineDigest.com. Follow me on Twitter at Michigan Podast. Special thank you to our friends at Detroit Sports Podcast as well. We are back at it again next week, looking at one of the more important games of the Harbaugh era as Michigan opens up Big Ten play against the Badgers of Wisconsin. Go Blue.